Welcome to Olivia's Blooms. If you are new to my channel, I'm gardening in Charlottesville, Virginia, Zone 7B. I'm a home gardener who loves growing my own cut flowers and home decor with a focus on sustainable, regenerative, and eco-friendly practices. But most importantly, I'm here to support, share with, and learn from other gardeners, so I hope you will join me in growing this amazing gardening community. Hey guys, welcome back to Olivia's Blooms. Today I am just going to be doing some spring chores here, and I thought I'd bring you along so you can see what's going on in the garden this time of year for me, how my garden's doing, how the flowers are doing for my side business. And it's a beautiful spring day, so I thought you guys might enjoy seeing what's going on. So I'm also going to give you a little update on how the cooler's doing. So the first thing we're going to do is right here on the table next to me. Here's my latest round of cool season flowers hardening off. This is my second to last succession of stock, and I feel like I've really nailed down the best seed starting method for these. Everything's looking good. Also, it's been a few days since we've had rain, and we're not going to get rain for another 4 to 5 days. So I'm going to take this opportunity to water. I don't have my drip system up yet, but because I'm going to be hand watering with some water from our rain barrel, I thought I'd add a little bit of fertilizer because a lot of my crops, I did not put fertilizer in with them. So the ones that were in the cover cropped bed, I'm not going to fertilize and just see how they do without it. But the rest of these, I'm going to just give them a little bit of fertilizer with their water. So let's get going here on these garden chores. My stock bed is almost full. I have one more succession after this planting, so I'm gonna fit the rest of these in here, and then I might have to move to another bed. But I'm gonna see how many I can get in here. And just a reminder, I did do 4-inch spacing with these, so I should be able to fit 144 stock in this bed. So let's get those planted. Take a look at those beautiful roots. This is exactly why I love soil blocks so much. All right, we officially have a full bed of stock. I still have a lot left, so I'm gonna have to find room for these guys somewhere. All right, we are now in a section of my garden right next to my deck behind my 2 rows. You can see I've got some blueberry bushes that are getting ready to bloom back here. And I've got these hyacinths in the front here that are already blooming. They smell incredible, but these are gonna be done soon. I have some calendula that I put back here, but I'm gonna see how these rest of these that I have that don't fit in my bed do in my landscape here. And I knew I was gonna have to do some of this year because I just don't have a ton of growing space. But this will be a good trial to see how the stock do out in my landscape versus the raised bed, because I've only really done them in the raised beds before. And I'm gonna space these pretty tightly again. I'm not using any fertilizer because the stock had the wool in them, but I am gonna give them some of the Neptune's Harvest liquid fertilizer here occasionally. And it's okay if these don't do as well as the ones in the bed. Again, I have enough there to get to my sales goal, and this is just meant to be a trial for me. I also don't know how this succession's gonna do this late in the season, so that'll be interesting to see. All right, there is the extra few stock. I'm showing some discretion, and I'm not gonna plant these. Either they don't look great, or these ones here you can see with the fused cotyledon, which you can see right here, the first baby leaves that come up, those are called the cotyledons. Those fused, which means this is going to be a single. And so I'm gonna try and, this one might be a double, but you can see it's already suffering a little bit. So I'm just gonna compost these and call it a day and be proud of myself that I didn't feel like I needed to plant every single last stem, and hope that these are worth the space they're taking up. But I want to save the rest of the space for the extra zinnias I know I'm gonna have. My last outdoor chore for today is here at my rain barrel, which is full, and I'm happy to be able to use this rainwater. And you might be wondering, why are you using rainwater? Well, rainwater is supposed to have even extra minerals and things that plants like, and it's also great for the planet to conserve water. So I'm going to be using this and hand watering today because, again, our drip is not set up. And I'll be adding in just a little bit of this Neptune's Harvest fish fertilizer. Let me show you up close. So I'm gonna just be adding a couple tablespoons of this to my 2-gallon watering can and going around and hand watering everything since it's gonna be dry for the next few days. Doing my best not to get these on their leaves, even though this is classified as something you could use as a foliar feed, meaning you could spray it on the leaves of the plants. At this concentration, it's really meant for their roots, and so I don't want to risk burning them by getting it all over their leaves. I'm bummed to discover that we already have some aphids. I'm noticing a few different pests on this cover crop. So, and this is the risk, I think, when we have plants that were overwintering. Let's see if you can see that other one right there. It looks like an egg of some sort. That it sort of creates a safe harbor for bad pests. So I'm a little bit torn because part of me wants to leave this cover crop here as a trap for the pests because I don't really care about this cover crop. So what I am gonna do though is I am gonna turn the hose on and spray down this as much as possible to kill as many of them as I can. I am gonna have to cut this down here soon because this is where my tomatoes are going. So that's a real disappointment, but every year we have something that gets covered in aphids. If it's the cover crop, I'm not too disappointed. So I'm gonna take that hose, spray it down, and then leave this up as long as I can and hope that I've killed them off enough for them not to move on to another poor plant. It's just part of the gardening journey. Good news, my flowers are loving the cooler. I'm still not sure what's going on with the temperature swings. I got this temperature monitor wireless. It is Bluetooth to help me see if the CoolBot temperatures were matching this. And so far they're not. So I don't know why that is. This is saying 46 and my CoolBot is saying that it's 50 degrees. I also noticed earlier the CoolBot said it was 35 in here and this thermometer said it was about 44. So I think the temperatures are more stable, at least down here where I'm storing the flowers, than the CoolBot seems to suggest. I also noticed my flowers are not freezing, even though the CoolBot says that it's getting, the temperature's getting that low. And the humidity in here is awesome. 99% is what you want when you're storing flowers. And when I stored my mom's bouquet in here, you could just see the flowers perk up. Even the open flowers looked amazing. So I am so happy with how this cooler's been working. You could see here I have some daffodils in my first tulip that I'll be saving to sell for some bunches. But really, really happy with how the cooler's working out. And I think this will be a great solution for storing my flowers. So today I am going to be potting up some of my Floret originals that I started really early on. Here is a container that, if you watched the video where I did my mom's front yard makeover, this is what the dianthus came in. So I'm going to reuse this to pot up some zinnias. I'm not going to pot up all of my Floret originals. You guys, look at how great they're doing. I'm so happy with these so far. But I'm experimenting because last year and most years I just grow these in the small soil blocks and then I plant them out. I don't ever pot them up, and they did great for me last year. I want to see, since I am starting them a little bit earlier, if potting some up makes a difference. So again, I'm going to be doing some experiments. I'm going to pot some of these up, and you can see I did the same with my floret celosia here. So these ones I potted up, again, just extra containers I had. I'm not buying any containers for these. I'm just trying to reuse the plastic that I have as much as possible. So these ones I've potted up, and then I have some still in their soil blocks here. And maybe I can even already notice a difference, but those are the ones in the small soil blocks. And these are the ones potted up. But I'm hoping, ideally, that the ones in the small soil blocks do well, because this is much more space savvy. You can see this is about the same here as this tray here. So we'll see if it makes a difference, maybe just for my early ones. Man, and I wish you guys could smell this lemon basil. It's incredible. Can't wait to put that in bouquets. So what I'm going to do with these is just fill these up with the Coco Loco potting soil, some moistened potting soil. And I'm not going to add any more fertilizer or any more wool because these already have wool in them. And we'll see how they do compared to ones in the small soil block. And remember, for the purposes of putting them in pots or trays, we just need it to hold together, but not as moist as the soil block. So if I squeeze it, I don't want to see a bunch of water coming out. So this looks pretty good. I'm just going to fill these up with potting soil. Give them a little shake to make sure it gets all settled. All right, that looks good. I also have a couple of these teeny tiny little pots. I think I bought succulents in these. I'm gonna use a few of these just because they are small enough. So I'm gonna fill these up as well. I also have a ton of like this size, but this is just too big width-wise. It'll take up too much space. Even with the amount of space I have, I still think it's gonna be too big to do like 20 or 40 plants in. So I'm gonna stick to the small sizes. Next, I'm just going to gently separate these, and I'm going to place them each in their own individual cell. You might be wondering why I'm not potting these up into bigger soil blocks. That would be my ideal situation. I still need to buy, but it's been sold out everywhere, the large blocker with the small divots that you can just place one of these small soil blocks in without disturbing the roots too much. I don't have that. My bigger size soil block, the hole isn't big enough, and so trying to jam one of these down in the soil block, it just disintegrates. Believe me, I've tried. So that's going to be in the future, my plan, but since I don't have that this year, I'm going to just be potting them up in smaller trays that I have. Again, just to see if it makes a difference. Is it worth it? And because I happen to have these trays. So let's go ahead, and I have 3 different Floret Original Zinnias here. I have the Precious Metals, I have the Unicorn Mix right here, and then this is Alpenglow. But for my purposes, I don't need to label them. They're all going in the exact same row, and I'm gonna know what they are once they start blooming. So I'm just gonna mix them up in here and not worry about which is which. So let's get these potted up. I'm just making a little hole and just gently plopping it in, making sure all those beautiful roots are covered by soil. All right, here they are all potted up. I'm not convinced that that amount of root disturbance, especially having to do it twice, once to pot them up and then once to put them in the ground, will be worth it. But again, this is a learning year for me. In hindsight, if you're gonna use these containers, it probably just makes sense to germinate them in these so you're not potting them up again, but we'll see. I'm trying to just find the best way to get the earliest zinnias, and I've got plenty of space and more zinnias than I have space for, so it's okay if not all of them are a success. The knowledge will be really valuable. So I'm going to put these under lights. I'm not going to water them in because the soil's pretty moist already. I do wonder if it's a true test because I am disturbing the roots of these in the small soil blocks. So I don't know if I'm giving these guys a fair shake, but again, we'll see if just planting these directly in the ground once we're past our last frost date will be a success. My next chore is to pot up these Sweet Annie so that I have some nice sweet smelling summer filler. You can see it germinated really well. I used the same method that I did for the snapdragons because these were such tiny little seeds. Because these are smaller, I am going to try and pot them up into soil blocks, the larger size soil blocks, and I need to hold them over until our last frost because these are frost sensitive. So I'm going to go ahead and make a bunch of soil blocks, and then I'm going to show you how I will pot these up. All right, I've got my soil blocks made. I have 40 here. I think that's plenty. I could pot up every single one of these if I really wanted to, but I don't even have room for 40, so I think this is going to be plenty. And then to save space, I've got a couple trays where I only had a few things germinate, so I'm going to fill the rest of this up with soil blocks that have already germinated so that this will be nice and full of plants. But what I'm going to do is I have a shovel here, but you could use a spoon. I just happen to have this little tool from a succulent tool set I got, and a clean toothpick. And I really like using a toothpick. I find that it helps get the seedlings into the block, and I'll show you that here in a second. But what I do is I'm just going to take this and gently pry these up so they're already kind of out of the soil and loosened, you can see here. And what that does is now when I just gently pull on one of these, they're already out of the soil and I can tease them apart really easily. So you can see their roots there. It's hard to do with one hand, but I can tease these apart very easily now without having to yank them or pull them. So let me take one here, and I'm going to start by using kind of the biggest, healthiest looking ones. Okay, so here's one I've separated. You can see it doesn't have a very big root system, and we don't really want it to because that would be hard to place down in a soil block. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it on top of the soil block here, and then I'm going to take my toothpick and just gently press it down into the soil, and this works really well. And then if there's anything sticking up above, I'll just gently move some soil around it, but this one I don't even think I needed to do that. It was nicely tucked in, and now it's potted up, and it's that simple. So I'm going to get the rest of these potted up in here. It is a bit labor intensive but to me it's worth it to make sure I get good germination on some of these smaller seeds, and then to make sure that every single one of my blocks has a plant in it. Alright, there they are, all tucked in. And I really, again, like the toothpick. It's the perfect tool for sort of nestling them in without disturbing their roots and without disturbing the soil block too much. And what's important is just that you make sure that all of those little roots are completely covered by soil and that there's no big air pockets next to them. And these should perk up here and start growing quickly in their new home. I did leave the last few here. I'll put them back under lights. There's only actually a couple left, but I like to keep them just in case some of these that I just potted up don't settle into their new home or don't take. Although even if some of these don't take, I think that's fine because I don't have room for all of these. But I'm going to fill up the rest of this tray and then get this back under lights. Here are some quaking oats that I only had a few germinate, so I'm going to put these on here. Here are some lettuce that I'm growing for spring pots. Oh, one of them died, but I'm gonna again put these on here since this isn't a full tray of them. And finally, I'm gonna carefully put these 20 blocks of gomphrena. I didn't get great germination, but I don't need a ton of these either, so I'm gonna put these very carefully on the tray. Alright, this last chore is the hardest for me, and as much as it pains me to do, I need to do it. So I have here my first sowing of the Floret Pink Chenille Celosia. I'm so excited for this one. And I got a little too happy with the seeds, and you can see some of them have 3 plants in them. And so I need to thin these, and because of how big these root systems are, I'm not going to try and pull these out. It'll probably ruin the soil block and I won't be able to get them in another soil block. So if I want more of these, I really just need to sow another set of them. But I still have 16 plants, which is plenty. So I just take a pair of sharp scissors and I cut off at the root system the ones that are the smallest, or just randomly pick some if they all look the same, so that I'm only leaving one and it has plenty of room to grow. So I'm going to quickly thin the rest of these, and then my chores are pretty much done for the day. Alright, done, and look at these beautiful white light sunflower transplants. These are going to be ready to go out soon. Everybody is tucked back in, happy, under lights. So I hope you enjoyed doing some garden chores with me today. Everything's looking pretty good here in my garden and my seed starting setup, and I hope yours is too.